Hello and welcome to Truth versus Hype. One of the biggest expectations of this government, or for that matter of any government, is creating jobs. We hear time and time again of India's demographic advantage, that by the year 2020, we are forecast to be the youngest country in the world, with a median age of 29. But that advantage can turn into a demographic nightmare, experts say, if not enough jobs are created for these millions of young people coming into the workforce every year. The potential for social unrest is very real, as is evident in the multiple protests for job reservations that we see erupting across India, from Haryana to Gujarat to Maharashtra. And the Prime Minister knows this all too well, as is evident by the number of times that he and his ministers have signalled the importance of jobs.
रोजगार के अवसर जितने ज्यादा बढ़ेंगे उतना ही परचेजिंग पावर बढ़ने वाला है.
एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन में भी हम पीछे नहीं है. प्रधानमंत्री जी एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन को टॉप प्रायोरिटी दिया है.
But on the ground, there isn't clear evidence that job creation is anywhere close to matching the promise. Let's first paint a picture of the scale of the challenge. An estimated 14 million or 1.4 crore people are entering the workforce every year, which is over a million or over 10 lakhs every month. Now, even if we assume that not all of them are job seekers, that's a huge number. Measure that against how many jobs are actually being created. By the same benchmark, the same survey, only 6.5 million or 65 lakh jobs are created in India every year. So, this is just roughly only 50% or less than that. Now, how is the Modi Sarkar holding up to this challenge? Well, it's important to note at the outset that data on labour and employment is not very reliable. But such as does exist suggests that the job scenario appears to be getting worse. The unemployment rate is currently at 5%, which is at a 5-year high, up from just about 3.8% to 5 years ago in 2012. The number of households that have had no wages or salaried person is 77%, barely down a percent from the previous year. And in what is bound to trigger a political controversy, it appears that under UPA 2, more jobs were created on average in these 5 core sectors of the organized economy versus the Modi government. The UPA 2 on an average created about 7 lakh jobs a year, the NDA on an average just 3 lakh jobs. This is according to the government Labour Department data. Now, this data flies in the face of the thrust given by the government towards labour intensive sectors, with the Make in India campaign, for instance. And while the latest manufacturing numbers do show an upward trend, most of it appears to be in the high-tech, high-skilled areas of production like cars and electronics and so on, areas which are facing a bigger challenge on the factory floor, automation. A report by McKinsey finds that nearly half of India's 37 lakh strong IT workforce will be irrelevant in 3.4 years because of automation, because of artificial intelligence and so on. Foxconn, which makes Apple iPhones and which has now a major India presence, they were in China, now they've come to India, have already said that they plan to move up to 30% of their Chinese plants towards automation by 2020. Now, how does the government plan to make good then on its promise? I spoke to the Deputy Chairman of the NITI Aayog, Arvind Panagariya, this is the government's main think tank, and began by asking him, how does the government intend to keep its promise of job creation? Now, the point here is, Dr. Panagariya, that since this government has come, the expectation level is higher because there's been a lot of talk by everyone from the Prime Minister downwards that the focus will be on increasing opportunities, particularly for the young. But on evidence, that doesn't seem to have happened. Where do you think the problem lies? Why is that not happening?
You know, as I said, this is a long-standing problem of organized sector, the formal sector in India not doing very well.
Okay.
And you can look at those data also the Labour Department puts up and all, you know,
yes.
Where the greatest difficulty is in expanding organized sector jobs. Now,
yes.
if you think of our successful industries where, you know, you can get organized sector jobs, our successful sectors are auto parts,
yes.
Two-wheelers, passenger cars, engineering goods industries, IT software industry, pharmaceuticals. These are either highly capital intensive industries or they are highly skilled labor intensive industries.
Right.
whereas the jobs that we need in very large numbers are at the level of either unskilled or low skilled level.
But why is that not changing, do you think? Because I saw somewhere that you actually think part of the problem is with industry itself. Is that
I have said this.
Is that true? You've said
I've
this?
said that also.
Yeah.
That somehow, you know, and there may be some historical reasons for it, but our industrialists largely are hardwired to be in these, you know, tech kind of sectors. They seem not to kind of go into things like clothing,
right.
Footwear, where you would have to deal with a large amount of
You actually said, if I may be blunt, our entrepreneurs have a Brahminical attitude towards entrepreneurship.
I said that. Yes, I said that.
You said
because when I speak,
what do you mean by that?
Well, when I speak to the entrepreneurs, often, you know, they would say, "Oh no, you know, we don't want to do the clothing industry. We don't want to do footwear industry.
Right.
We do the."
But is it fair to blame the other side, to blame the private sector for what some would call the government's own failings? If you look at the latest World Bank report on ease of doing business, India is at 142, which is right there at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. No, but they are doing automobiles. They are doing a lot of other things quite successfully, right?
Sure.
With the same ease of doing business environment. And by the way, you know, so how you do it, ease of doing business is itself an issue because.
Right.
After all, you know, India today is one of the largest, either the largest or second largest recipient of foreign investment also. So, but that apart,
right.
That apart, what I'm saying here is you are absolutely right. So, I don't think you can blame the individual entrepreneurs. They will go where the profits are. So I understand that. Where I do come in and ask the industry is that, look, you know, when you're talking to the entire industry organizations,
yes.
The chambers, the
right.
CII, the FICCI, you know, all the chambers. I think as a group, industry does have some obligation to see that, look, there are 500 million workers,
okay.
and we need good jobs. And so what I tell them is that, look, you know, at least there is some obligation for you to come and tell the government that, look, you know, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. I will then employ 250,000 workers.
Your point, which you make in your report as well, that it's underemployment as opposed to unemployment, which is a big problem. But I want to come back to the issue of how much is the government responsible for what is happening and how much is, as you pointed out, the private sector. And one argument being made is that notebandi, demonetization, has actually exacerbated the unemployment problem. You must have seen this latest report by the Labour Bureau, which has been quoted by people like Sitaram Yechuri, where he says that almost 1.35 lakh jobs in the informal sector were lost in the last financial quarter of the last year.
Look, I mean, you know, when you talk quarterly, so you can't count only jobs that disappeared. You also have to count the jobs that appeared.
Right.
So you know, in any dynamic economy, look at the US economy, there is job creation and there is job destruction. On net, you ought to be creating, and just as products appear and disappear, jobs can appear and disappear also.
So you would,
but on net we ought to be creating. On net we ought to be creating. We ought to be adding, because we are a dynamic economy. In a dynamic economy,
okay, I take that point, because there were also jobs added in that same period. But would you then debunk or rebut the argument that demonetization has exacerbated India's unemployment problem?
To me, as I said, you know, we still lack good, high quality numbers on employment and unemployment, particularly on the short term basis. And the surveys that are done, the most reliable surveys are every 5 years. So the last one is 11-12. We are still, this is a very old survey still. To then turn around and say that I can measure somehow the impact of demonetization itself, I think it's a little far-fetched.
In conclusion, would you say that we still have a demographic dividend, or are you worried, as some are, that it may turn into a demographic bombshell?
No. There are two ways. One, I still remain very optimistic. We are growing at 7.5%.
Okay.
And this can be accelerated, and particularly if we solve the banking problem, I think we will accelerate further. I've never seen, you know, a situation in which economy grows at 8% plus, and either wages don't rise or employment doesn't rise. I mean, we have seen actually the wages rise very rapidly in our country when we grew about 8% plus.
All right.
And so that can still happen again.
Okay, well, optimism is always a good note to end on. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Panagariya, for talking to us. Thanks very much indeed.